Hello everyone and welcome back to Badminton Weekly with me, Jasmine Lim. Today we'll look back at what went down in the recently concluded DAIHATSU Indonesia Masters 2023 before we look ahead to the Princess Sirivannavari Thailand Masters. And here with us today, I'm really happy to have women's singles world number 16 and an expert on our panel, Kirsty Gilmer. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kirsty.
Hi Jasmine, no, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's start in Jakarta, where former world number 1 Nozomi Okuhara lost to 5th seed He Pingjiao in the opening round. Now, this actually makes the 3rd time in a row that the Japanese has failed to progress past the first stage this year. So I think it's pretty fair to say that Okuhara has yet to find her rhythm, especially coming back from the injury of hers. Now, Kirsty, you are a player yourself, so can you share with us how difficult this process might be, especially for somebody like Okuhara who has performed at such a high level for such a long time?
Yeah, I think external expectations will always be super high, especially regarding Nozomi's previous results. But I think returning from injury is harder than people think. People think like, okay, there's no pain anymore, you must be straight back to the level that you were before. But that's just not how it works. But I do think, judging by Nozomi's Instagram, she's staying so realistic. Obviously, this is just from Instagram, from what I'm gleaning. She's staying really realistic and really positive about the process. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's a process. It's not a kind of like, it's not results orientated. And she says she feels like she's making progress regardless of the results, which I think is just the best place that you can be in coming back from an injury. It's a pure like focus on yourself and your journey, if we want to call it that. So I think it'll take these little kind of sticky tournaments to get back into it, but I think she can get back to where she was, but it's so difficult, especially with the quality of especially singles right now.
Now, Okuhara, apart from her injury, she's also been dealt with a pretty tough draw since the start of the year. Now, if you had a draw like that, what would you tell yourself to really ensure that your confidence really remains at an all-time high despite these results?
I do think she won't be used to getting top seeds in her first rounds just because she was, she's been top 8 in the world for so long. So she's kind of guaranteed a non-seed in the first round. But I think so much of winning relies on momentum. I think that's a huge part of it. So even though these do kind of look like kind of really early losses, it will be the start of her momentum, her competitive momentum again, and really getting back into the flow of just tournaments, because she'll have been home and kind of head down rehab and then back to training for however long. So even just like that kind of getting back on the road and being away from home and getting back into the competition kind of mode will be kind of another thing to get around. So I think I have no doubt that the Japanese team will have great support staff around them. Even the players, there'll be so much support there for it. They're a huge team. When Team Japan descend on a hall, you know about it. So she'll have lots of peers and she'll have lots of experts around her. So I'm fairly confident. Unfortunately for myself, I'm fairly confident that Okuhara will make a good comeback, I think.
So moving on to a surprise exit at the DAIHATSU Indonesia Masters, China's Liang Weikeng and Wang Chen's second round loss in the men's doubles. Now, the Chinese pair, they were on a back-to-back title run, but they fell short against Malaysians Aaron Chia and So Woi Ik. They've beaten the Malaysian pair before, and that's pretty recent in the India Open final. But what do you think went wrong for them in this particular match?
Yeah, I think losing to the current world champions can't be seen as too much of an upset or a kind of underdog story. But yeah, like you say, they've had like such a great run the last few weeks, but the margins in men's doubles are so fine that it just takes, some different conditions, a different country, a different crowd even, and these things can be knocked off balance. So I think the performance was still good, but they'll also have expended so much more energy over the last 2 weeks, and to do that for a third week, it would be incredibly difficult. So yeah, I think to lose to the current world champions I think they'll be annoyed because of their momentum in these last few tournaments, but I don't think they can be too upset at that. Just the more you play, the more videos and video analysis there is that people can do on you, more homework, and that they can gather on a pair. So it might have been a kind of like, not beginner's luck, but just like bringing all this new stuff that the pairs couldn't prepare for. But now we've got kind of at least 10 matches worth of information to gather from. So that definitely could have been a factor in this week's result.
Now, moving on to the women's doubles finals, Zhang Shuxian and Liu Shengshu were playing together for the first time. Before this, Zhang was paired with Zheng Yu, but the switch for a younger partner seems to be working extremely well for her. They defeated Fukushima and Hirota in the final, who have also been on a comeback trail of their very own. But what do you make of this particular match and this new Chinese combination?
I was looking at the new player and I was like, wow, she's only 19, that's impressive. And her partner, saying that, her partner's 23, so they're both really young. But I think in terms of this final, well, this whole tournament, but especially the final, it was really it was really fearless badminton. It was just, they just went all guns blazing. It was aggressive but still controlled, and it was really impressive. It's such a tight match, 22-20 and 21-19. But I thought it was impressive, and it was just a little bit different. I think that's what I like, the young, kind of naive in a good sense, in a really good sense, kind of not thinking about what should happen. She was just kind of absolutely going for it and playing from pure instinct, and I thought that was really great to see. So that's going to be a really exciting partnership if they can just come in and beat the Japanese straight off the bat in 2 sets. That's pretty impressive.
Let's talk about a discipline you're very familiar with, the women's singles. And when we talk about that, we must talk about Carolina Marin and her amazing run. She has played solid throughout the week and seems to be slowly returning to her peak. Now, Marin, although she fell short against the quality of An Se-young in the final, Christie, how good is it to see Marin doing so well?
Yeah, definitely. It's really nice to see. She's had some fairly tough draws, and I think people might be like, well, people might compare it to what she managed to do the last time she was coming back from an injury, which was the 2 Thailand tournaments back to back, won them outright. Thank you very much. See you later. But I think that's quite an exception to the rule. I think this is much more a typical injury comeback journey. She's had a couple of first rounds back a few months ago, but now there's some second rounds, quarterfinals. Now we've got a final, and I think that is the kind of more steady increase in performance that we would typically see. But it's really nice to see Carolina back tearing around the court. In terms of this final, I think An Se-young just has this ability to just disarm you with just calmness. Just really, you think you've got her in trouble? No, you just put another one back in. Whereas Carolina wants to play that kind of fast-paced, really aggressive, with initiative play all the time. And that's a lot of energy to expend against someone that's just soaking it up, sending it back over. So I thought like it was a really big contrast of styles. And I think maybe the energy expenditure was the key factor in the third set, where An Se-young kind of pulled away, because for Carolina to maintain that quality in the latter part of the third set, you saw those errors creeping in. Start of 2023 for An Se-young, I mean, I was going to say it couldn't be much better, but I think she could have, one runner-up in the first 3 is pretty impressive. The other 2 wins against Yamaguchi, Carolina, that's a good record. Anyone would be happy with that, I think. But just for her to be so young and so calm in her approach is incredible. And to not get kind of carried away or flustered when Carolina especially is throwing everything at you. It's really great to watch.
Thanks so much, Kirsty. We'll come back to you in just a bit, but now let's listen to what Carolina Marin has to say about her time in Indonesia and just how passionate the fans can get there.
Actually, I feel happy with how I feel on court. My performance is getting better and better, so I am a determination player. This is what I want to show on court, that I'm not scared to face anyone. I am eager to keep improving myself, to keep going on court, and yeah, this is what I'm doing. I think it's a good memory, of course, just to play a final here at the Sora with this amazing crowd is always a really good feeling for every player when we are on court. And yeah, this is why I love to play here. How is the atmosphere, how people love badminton. I feel like to be at home because I have so much support behind me. And I want to say to all my Indonesian fans during this week, thanks a lot for all your support, guys. I really appreciate it. I love all of you, and I hope to see you soon.
Next up on HSBC BWF World Tour is Bangkok for the Princess Sirivannavari Thailand Masters. And speaking of the Super 300 event, it's no surprise that there will be a large Thai contingent there, especially in the women's singles and doubles with multiple top 20 players and pairs. My question for you, Kirsty, is can they deliver in front of their home fans?
I think this could be a really interesting one. I think especially, I'll speak a bit more on the women's singles, just so I know it a bit more intimately. With the quality and the breadth that they have in the women's singles players, I think there's a really good chance of lots of Thai players in quarter semis, potentially an all-Thai final. I actually have not had the privilege of playing in this arena, but from what I know about Thailand in general, I would say the halls that I have played in have been pretty windy and possibly on the slow side. But I think women's singles this week for Thailand could be a fairly good week. Women's doubles also maybe not quite as dominating or as spread as the women's singles, but certainly they've got some really strong pairs.
Apart from the Thailand team, this would be the fourth tournament in a row for quite a number of players like Zhang Shuxian and Ng Ka Long. Are you surprised by their decision to continue, and would you do it personally?
I think as a player I would, but there would have to be a real reason for it, not just simply because the tournaments are there and available to play. I think players will do 4 in a row if they're coming back from an injury and they just want to get as many top level matches under the belt as possible. For some of the European players, I know it'll be a sense of we're already in Asia, we might as well do all 4 and just be here for that experience. Some people will be on the points trail, some people will want to get some more ranking points and climb the rankings, perhaps to stay in the top 32 to guarantee spots in future draws. So there'll be a whole range of reasons why players will decide to play 4. Personally, I have done it in the past, and I wouldn't say I've had great success by the 3rd or the 4th one, just mentally and emotionally, maybe getting a bit homesick, maybe just finding it difficult on my body to get back into that real, maybe emotionally drained, but you can just still find that little bit that says like, right, we'll just have to go all in. This is the last one. We'll give it everything that we've got.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, Kirsty, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Thanks, Jasmine. I honestly had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
We'll definitely see more of Kirsty in the future, but for now, it's time to say goodbye. As always, don't forget to share your comments and questions on the BWF Facebook page. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week.